Welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to pause as we allow our guests to come into the webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Noemi Guevara, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at California State University, Long Beach. We thank you for joining us today for our next edition of our 49er Industry Chat. Before we start, I would like to let you know the session is being recorded and it will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni for your future reference and enjoyment. We also encourage you to use our Q&A box located below or above to submit any questions for our guest speaker today. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the chat, Alice LaViolette. Alice is a double alumna, earning her degrees in psychology in 1969 and 1980. She was recognized as a distinguished alumna in 2011 for the College of Liberal Arts and currently serves as a committee chair for the CSULB Alumni Council. Alice, thank you much for moderating the chat today. And now I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Noemi. And I'm really excited to introduce Jessica Arteaga. Jessica began her legal career as an associate with Margolin Lawrence, which was a criminal law firm. And she worked on white-collar crime, drugs, DUIs, other felonies and misdemeanors throughout California. She also worked with lobbyists and politicians to legalize medical marijuana. In 2015, she joined the Office of the Public Defender of Los Angeles County as a deputy public defender. The Public Defender's Office is the largest criminal defense firm in the world and the largest public defender office in the nation. She's now been with this office for 5 years and has worked to create meaningful and lasting relationships with clients, with communities and colleagues. She carries a genuine love for social justice and the defense of the indigent. As a public defender, she has worked in various areas such as misdemeanors. She's done training for incoming attorneys, and she's currently working a felony assignment. Jessica's a board member of a racial justice committee where she deals with issues of justice, racial justice, diversity, and inclusion within the Public Defender's Office. She serves as the president of the Latino Public Defenders Association, where she works with inner city communities. She provides scholarships to students, or her group does, starting their undergraduate degrees. She addresses social justice issues in Latino communities. Jessica marries her personal experience with a professional passion embedded in a desire to see young people having a humanizing legal experience. She builds relationships with her clients. She holds a BA in political science and a BS in criminal justice from Cal State Long Beach, and she has her Juris Doctorate degree from Southwestern School of Law. Please welcome Jessica Arteaga. Thanks, Jessica. You're muted. Okay.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited. And this is where I share a few things about myself. I originally was on track to swim for UC Santa Cruz before I decided to go to Long Beach. I actually went to athlete orientation and hated the campus, hated the school, hated the vibe, and decided to go to Cal State Long Beach instead. I do not regret making that decision. Cal State Long Beach has a big place in my heart. They provided lots of services for me, provided me the college life and experience that I always dreamt about. I'm very happy and blessed that I got to go to that school, got to meet a lot of fascinating people, great counselors that I still keep in touch with. So my time at Cal State Long Beach was the best and the most memorable times of my life. Very happy to have gone there. As you said, in Cal State Long Beach, I did a double major in political science and criminal justice. During my time at Cal State Long Beach, I was also part of the Associate Students Incorporated, where I was part of the judiciary branch of ASI. I was the judicial chief pro tem, which also gave me a lot of connections within student government, allowed me to have wonderful advisors who encouraged me to go to law school. I didn't quite have the required GPA, and I was told that law school might not be for me, but I know deep down in my heart that that's what I wanted to do. My dream job has always been being in public service. I wasn't sure what kind of public service I wanted to get into, whether I wanted to do children's court and represent children, or be a district attorney, or be a public defender, or some type of public counsel for the county where we assist people under conservatorships, etc. So after I graduated Cal State Long Beach, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to do something that was public service related, but I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go to law school quite yet. So I took a 2-year gap and I started working at different law firms. Law school is very expensive, so make sure you really want to go into law school before you apply. And I started working at different law firms, did some family law, did some personal injury, and I really wasn't interested in that certain area of the law. I then started working for a criminal defense attorney, which is Allison Margolin, who kind of just took me under her wing. I started going to court with her, started shadowing her, and became her paralegal. And then I said, wow, this is really interesting. I really like criminal law. And as of then, I decided to apply for law school. I spent about a year studying for my LSATs because my LSAT scores weren't where they needed to be. I took a few courses. My boss was nice enough to get me a tutor. I was able to get my LSAT score up, and finally got accepted into Southwestern School of Law. I got waitlisted in a bunch of other schools, decided to go to Southwestern, and there I was also very active and participated in a lot of organizations such as like the Black Law Students Association, the Latino Law Students Association, the International Justice Mission, and the Women's Law Association in my time there. And I was able to graduate. I graduated, I believe, in 2012. And then started studying for the bar. Once I studied for the bar, I ended up taking the bar 3 times because it is a very tough exam, and a lot of that exam requires mental stability because your nerves could be a mess. Eventually, I ended up passing the 3rd time, and I was still working for Allison Margolin at the time, and she allowed me to be her associate. So we did a lot of work with medical marijuana at the time. Marijuana was not legal or recreational, it was just for medicinal use. And a lot of cultivators, manufacturers were getting arrested for providing medicinal help to cancer patients and severely ill patients at the time. So I was working with them on getting their cases dismissed. I was also working with lobbyists on trying to figure out ways on how medicinal can have more accessibility without any criminal consequences. And then after that, during that time, because there was a depression and the economy was down, the public defender's office was not hiring. They ended up opening up hiring while I was studying for the bar, and they might have hired maybe like 13 lawyers. So I wasn't able to apply the first time around. Second time around, economy's better, and there's a big grant, and they were able to hire about 55 attorneys. And there was maybe about 300 applicants. I applied, submitted my resume, did this series of interviews. It's a very intense interview process, and ended up getting hired. Part of the pool of the 52 attorneys that were hired. We were considered the biggest class that has been hired in the event of our office, because we were just in such need of attorneys, and there were so many budget cuts during the Depression back in 2007, 2009. And I've been working with them since then. I love working for my office. I'm very involved in my office. Like Alice said, I'm part of the Racial Justice Committee, and I'm also the president of the Latino Public Defenders Association. I see myself in that office for a very long time. And there's also incentives for working in public service, such as school loan forgiveness, which is something I'm also very vested in. And now I'm currently handling felonies, lots of serious cases, sex cases, murder cases, gun cases, robberies, attempted murder, lots of cases with involving gangs, youth. I do a lot of domestic violence cases. And I really love my job because I'm able to help the most vulnerable of our community. Because when you're going through a criminal proceeding, it could be a very traumatic experience if you don't have the support that you need. So I'm happy to help and assist in any way that I can, not just in my own legal capacity, but as a friend or as a supporter or as an advocate for them, because not a lot of people in the criminal justice system tend to judge people just because they were charged for a crime and don't really know the background. So I'm able to help my clients and give them that comfort that they need during such a difficult time.
So Jessica, we have questions just popping up. Are you willing to take some questions now? Great.
Let's take some questions.
Okay. One of the first ones is, why did you double major? And did you know you wanted to be an attorney from the beginning?
I didn't know I wanted to be an attorney. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in the business of making laws for criminal reform or defending. So I decided to major in both. I said, okay, well, let me major in criminal justice because I was very infatuated with the criminal justice system. I saw that there was a lot of changes that need to be made, primarily because I'm from an inner city community. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. I've been racially profiled. I've been pulled over and sat on the curb because of the color of my skin, or because of the way that I appear. So I saw a lot of injustices in the criminal justice system. So I was kind of in between, like, well, I don't know, should I go the political route and maybe run for office, or become a lobbyist where we can make laws to for criminal justice reform, or should I go into the trenches and defend people who are being wrongfully convicted, or who committed the crime but they were mentally ill or have other trauma that is not being addressed? And if we don't address it, the behavior will continue. So I think that's why I took a break, because I really wasn't so sure what I wanted to do. And I think the break was very helpful. I encourage many, if you're done with school and you don't know what you want to do, taking a break is okay. It'll give you clarity. It'll give you peace of mind as to what the next steps can be. Like, you don't have to have your plans right after you graduate.
That's well, I love your philosophy. I'm just going to say that I really appreciate it. Do you recommend working or interning at a law firm before you start law school if you're on the fence, you're not really sure what you want to do?
Definitely. When I first started my first year of law school, I met a lot of people, and they usually make the statement that they say, look to your left, look to your right. One of them is not going to be here next semester. And it's true, because your first year of law school is very, very intense. And it's mentally challenging, it's physically challenging because you're not really sleeping. The anxiety levels are high. So if you're on the fence, I mean, law school is roughly about $75,000 a year now. So if you're on the fence, I would definitely recommend that you work in the field. I know the public defender's office, we hire volunteers, law clerks, interns. You don't necessarily have to go to law school to volunteer at a public service office. So if you are on the fence and you don't know, I would definitely recommend either interning, volunteering, or getting a job at a law firm that may interest you.
Thanks, Jessica. What skills do you recommend students sort of work on in their pursuit of law school? What skills are essential to what you do?
I think test taking skills are very necessary. I was never the good test taker, and I started figuring out why. While I was at Cal State Long Beach, I was having issues with taking multiple choice tests primarily. When I have to pick a certain answer, I just start questioning and I second guess myself, and I don't know when or if that was the right answer or not, when in reality, my first answer in the first place was the right. And I started discovering, and because Cal State Long Beach has such good services, I got connected with, I can't remember the name of the department, but I ended up getting tested, and I discovered that I had testing anxiety and a learning processing anxiety. And the people at Cal State Long Beach allowed me to learn how to take tests under stress. I was able to get some accommodations, and with that, I was able to learn how to take tests. They provided environments like mock exams where you are under that environment and under that same kind of stress. So I definitely think if you are experiencing any of those issues, maybe getting anxiety or not having enough time to finish an exam, you should definitely reach out to your counselors. There's definitely programs available for you. Because of that assistance, I was able to score higher on my LSATs, my bar exams, and I was able to get the accommodations that I needed. So test taking skills is very definitely necessary. If you can take any logic classes, philosophy, English classes as well, because the LSAT does require you writing, those are definitely necessary. I didn't, and I wish I would have. And definitely prep courses, taking classes that are tailored for the LSAT. So logic classes at best.
Thank you, Jessica. Have you practiced, you're a public defender, you work in criminal defense. Have you also worked on the prosecutorial side at all?
No, I have not. I've always liked the defense. It's quite challenging. Sometimes we do have to bend over backwards and create defenses that are new to certain people, especially to jurors. But I've always liked the defense side. I feel like there's more work to do on the defense side.
Well, and following up on that, how do you feel when you defend someone that you know is guilty and the crime is kind of heinous? How do you adjust to that yourself? Because I know you need to provide the best defense, but how do you make that adjustment for yourself?
So when the evidence is there, the evidence is there. There's no doubt about it. There's a surveillance camera that captures the entire incident. And it's not about defending someone you know is guilty. For me, it's how can we change this behavior? How can we make sure this person doesn't do it again? Sending someone to state prison with no resources, no counseling is not going to address the issue, right? So how can we change the situation and change this person's way of thinking or way of reacting, so that this doesn't happen again. Prior to when I first started, there wasn't really a lot of resources for that. And now that there's more resources, there's different courses that we can take. For example, I'm allowed to share facts. So I have a client who had a lot of trauma as a child, was in the foster care system. And he was charged with assault with a deadly weapon because someone at his place of employment said something triggering, and he overreacted. This client has no criminal history. He is a college student now, has a great GPA. The charge that they're charging him is a strikeable offense. Anyone who gets a strike, especially someone who's in college and is trying to do the right thing, is going to go through a lot of consequences and probably will never find a job. So now the courts have something called mental health diversion, because the court is now, and the law in the state of California is now seeing the need for mental health resources, because about 60% of our cases, our clients are mentally ill. However, they're not addressing the behavior that causes the crime. And here you have clients committing the same thing over and over again because they're not getting treatment, they're not getting counseling, and they don't have access to the resources. So now what the court allows us to do is file something called mental health diversion, where you basically put the case over for a year. And if the client consents to treatment, accepts treatment, if you can establish that there's a nexus between the mental health diagnosis and the crime, which is where experts come in to help us coordinate that, then if for that time period they complete everything and complete any other requirements with the court, whether it be anger management classes along with mental health counseling or job training, employment training, then that person can earn a dismissal on the case. Now, what that does is it allows the client to earn a dismissal if they complete the treatment. So it gives them an incentive. Then they are connected to treatment, to counselors, so that if it does happen again, they are able to seek help for it. Because sometimes people who are mentally ill, they'll take the meds, but then they need an adjustment or they need a tweak in their meds. And so these programs now are allowing us to give our clients, like my specific client, a second chance. So I have that coming up soon. So I'm hoping the judge will grant my motion, but we'll see.
Did you have, Jessica, did you have a mentor or someone that specifically kind of guided you, or several folks who specifically guided you throughout your career or during your time at Cal State Long Beach?
Yes, I still have mentors till this day. I think it's very important for everyone to have a mentor or to have someone to talk to, or who can relate to what you're going through. I have lots of mentors at work. We also have trainers. We have a lot of resources. We have investigators that we work with. There's support groups that you can attend. Like our offices have a women's support group for women who have children and also have this job, because it's such a high stress job. So I think it's very important to have mentors. I had mentors when I was at CSULB. And I was able to, I still keep in touch with some of those mentors, and I had mentors when I was in law school. My contracts professor was a very good mentor of mine who I also still keep in touch with. So it's definitely necessary to have a mentor, because there's always going to be an issue that you need to talk to someone about.
What's in your day-to-day career, can you give us kind of a typical day in your life as a public defender?
Pleasure. You never really know what you're going to get. So the way it works is, so I work at the criminal courts building, which is the biggest criminal court in the world, in all of California. It's a very, very, very big courthouse. A lot of specialized divisions come there. So you get a lot of like white collar crime, you get specific sex offenses, some capital case murders. Um, there's all kinds of stuff going on in that courtroom. So the way it works is I am assigned to a department, and we have what's called matrix days. So I could be responsible for whatever comes my way on such day in this department. So there's really no telling what I'm going to get or what's going to happen. So it allows us to get a variety of cases of all different sorts, from a gun case to real estate fraud to some kind of health and safety violation, like someone who's refusing to get vaccinated, even though they have a disease that can cause a lot of contamination. We have asset forfeiture cases where there's like money laundering being involved, specialized domestic violence cases, child trafficking, human trafficking, prostitution. So every day is a little different. I just never know what's going to happen, because sometimes there's so many criminal defendants in LA County that sometimes not everyone's going to come to court. So your client may bench warrant and there might be an arrest, and you think I'm just going to have an office day today, and then suddenly all of your clients get picked up because they didn't show up to court. So it's really hard to tell what happens in a day, but every day there's just never a dull moment at my job. Every day is very exciting.
So what resources do you have to keep you up on all the laws that are changing and the new laws that are coming?
So we have, our office has a lot of resources. We have an appellate department that keeps us up to date on all the laws that are incoming, different changes in the laws. They sent us a weekly email on different changes and updates on the law. We also have an immigration department, because there's a nexus between immigration and criminal law for people who are undocumented, people who are residents, that, there's certain charges that they can't accept if they're, seeking asylum or seeking legal status in the future. So we have an immigration department specifically set for that we can ask questions to. They're available to us by phone or by email. We have an investigations unit that assists us with conducting investigations. A lot of them are retired LAPD officers who assist us in conducting investigations, interviewing witnesses, minor witnesses. We have so many departments. We also have collaborative court coordinators who allow us to place our clients in different courts depending on the type of case. For example, there's mental health court, who addresses all of our clients who are severely mentally ill, that they're incompetent and cannot go through criminal proceedings. We have other collaborative courts like LGBTQ court, which specifically focuses on the LGBTQ community. We also have co-occurring court disorders, where people who suffer from substance abuse and mental health court can also get treatment. We have different programs for people who are on parole or on supervised release. We have a special juvenile division. So there's definitely a lot of resources. We currently have social workers who work for the Department of Health. And we have access to many experts through the court, depending on the type of case that you have. So you definitely have a lot more resources than what I had as a private attorney.
Well, this sort of piggybacks on that. When you're assigned a case, do you have a team that assists you in researching that case and any kinds of things? Do you have a second chair when you?
I do not have a second chair, but there are resources that I can reach out to. Some of the times that makes it a little more difficult when the client is in custody, and clients in custody have speedy trial rights. And sometimes they don't want to waive time. They want to go to trial right away. And so I may have the resources to help them, but the client doesn't want to waste any time. And sometimes investigations or getting expert reports requires more than the general 60 days that you have to go to trial. But so that makes it difficult. But I also understand the criminal defendant's perspective, because no one wants to be in jail so long, especially during a pandemic. But I don't have a second chair. The only time you get a second chair is if you have a special circumstance murder that requires a second chair to help you. But for the most part, we're currently working on getting more budgeting so that we can hire more attorneys, so that we are able to have second chairs in not just a special circumstance murder.
You mentioned you wanted to stay with the public defender's office. What advice do you give someone who wants to grow with their firm? And I don't know if this is a job application. Would you ever consider starting your own firm?
I think, so I worked private before, and I like the experience, and I like the opportunities and the flexibility that it gave me. However, you must be aware that when you run your own firm, not only are you an attorney, but you're also a business owner. So that requires two jobs at the same time. And if you have the energy and the adaptability, then go for it. As a criminal attorney, private attorney, I had to make myself available 24/7. I had an answering service who would call me at 2 a.m. because someone got a DUI or someone is in custody. And those are calls that you have to take, because if you don't take it, another attorney will take the case. So it requires a lot of work, in the sense that not only do you have to practice criminal law, but you also have to be a business owner. You got to make sure you have malpractice insurance. You have to make sure you have an answering system. You have to have a secretary. You have to have payroll. And as a business owner, making payroll is probably a big stress, because you have to worry about paying everyone, especially your staff that has children and have mouths to feed. So getting cases, getting advertisements, establishing a good reputation for yourself, along with being a lawyer and doing a trial, can be very, very difficult. So just keep that in mind. So being in the private practice, I enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't what I wanted to do, because I want to help people who can't afford an attorney. I want to help people who need the help the most.
So that really answers the question about whether you want to start your own law firm.
I don't
yeah.
think so.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
This is great that you're getting congratulated. Congratulations on your success as a woman of color. Have you ever suffered from the imposter syndrome? Many times fear prevents us from seeking opportunities. So the question is, have you ever suffered from the imposter syndrome?
I mean, I think so. I think when I was in college, I did not see myself doing what I'm doing now, because I'm a woman of color. And when I went to law school, I didn't see a lot of people of color in my class. So definitely, I definitely did face the imposter syndrome. It was very hard. I got to a point where I thought, maybe this is just not for me. Maybe I'm doing this for the wrong reasons, especially while I was taking the bar. I was like, I can't believe I came all this way and I can't pass the bar exam. But I think that fear is always going to be there. And I think if you push past that fear and build enough self-confidence, you can get to doing what you set your goal for. I mean, I was told many times that with my LSAT score and with my GPA, I wouldn't be a lawyer. Like, they just didn't see me doing that. In addition, when I got to law school, I was placed on academic probation my first semester, but I had an advocate who is still my mentor now, my contracts teacher, who was able to pull through for me because she noticed that it wasn't that I didn't know anything. It's just I didn't have enough time to finish the exam. So I ended up getting everything right on all of my tests, but I just didn't finish the other half. And that's when I was able to get more learning accommodations. So even though there's still that fear, and I walk into work with fear all the time because my clients' liberty rights are at stake and I am in charge of them. So I think as long as you know how to conquer your fear and how to be confident, you are capable of doing anything.
And I want to follow up on that question and ask if you have experience as a woman of color, have you experienced, and as a woman, have you experienced harassing kinds of environments or harassing kinds of clients?
Yes, I do. I have taught my clients what boundaries are. There is maybe not, I have been confused for the interpreter instead of the lawyer. I have clients, specifically, I worked in a branch where it was primarily Asian males or Asian communities. And a lot of the men had a problem with me defending them in their domestic violence case, or told that I am dressed too provocative or that my hair is too wild, to look a little more professional for trial. So yes, definitely. I sense that all the time. But it's, I mean, as opposed to becoming upset about it, I teach them that this is not the right way to address things. And I try to get them to see that I am just as good as a male lawyer.
How do you do that, Jessica? What kinds of things do you say to them?
I like to have sit-down meetings with them. I like them to see the work that I've done on their case, because a lot of them is just insecurities, right? They assume that I'm judging them because he's a man and because, you know, I'm a woman, I'm going to be on the woman's side. So I like to sit down with them. I like to conversate with them. And I like to say, look, this is what we're doing. This is my plan. Unfortunately, because I am a public defender, you don't have a choice to an attorney. You're kind of stuck with me. So if we're going to work together, let's be on the same page. Let's build a relationship on trust, and let's help you get out of this in a favorable situation. And at that point, they begin to understand. I think most of the time they don't really value the work I do until they get the results that they want.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
You're out in the community as part of the Latino Public Defenders Association. What has that experience been like, and how do you empower kids from the inner city to seek careers in law?
So the Latino Public Defenders Association works a lot with the underage community, particularly in the Southeast region. So we work a lot with like Garfield High School, Highland Park High School, Roosevelt, and I believe Wilson High School in Los Angeles, where we encourage them to not just get careers in public service, but encourage them to go to college. We provide annual fundraisers to where we award anywhere from 5 to 15 scholarships a year. Due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to do direct outreach, which I feel is more effective than virtual. COVID and this pandemic has definitely put a halt on the one-on-one that we normally do. What we do is we set up mentors for these young kids that are interested, we work with college advisors from each high school. We set up mentor programs. A lot of our scholars have gone to intern for our office or have gone to work with the sponsors that provided them the scholarship. For example, we have a civil engineering firm who assists us in giving a scholarship every year. And most of the recipients that he has selected, he has employed, provided internships. So we really like to work with the community, especially inner cities and communities of color, because they don't get that same interaction. And we want them to see that people of color can succeed.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, would you mind talking about a case for you that was a real compelling case? I know you probably have a lot of them, not just one, but would you mind talking about one of the cases that for you was really challenging, really something that pulled on you?
Yes. I had a elder abuse case not too long ago, where it was a Chinese family that spoke Mandarin. My client was under the influence of alcohol. He cares for both of his parents who are elderly, and he ends up getting arrested because the neighbors heard something break and they heard yelling, so they became concerned and they called 911. Unfortunately, there was no officer who spoke Mandarin whatsoever, and my client gets arrested for elder abuse, which is a very serious crime. But there was a defense to the entire story the entire time. My client, as he was serving them soup, was also drinking a lot of alcohol, slips, falls, lands on the glass table, and injures himself. As the parents try to assist him because he's bleeding profusely, they get worried and they start touching their face. So they look like they've been abused and injured. However, because of the language barrier, the officers couldn't get the story, and the fire department comes and ends up arresting my client, when in reality this was a whole misunderstanding. Because the charge was so serious, the district attorney was not hearing me out. They wanted a conviction. Parents would come to court every day and plead to the judge to remove the restraining order because their son was the person who took them to their medical appointments. And so I had no choice. I had to take the case to trial. I refused and advised my client to not take a deal because they wouldn't offer anything that was elder abuse, and he didn't do anything. And I was able to find an expert, a doctor, who could testify to the medical records and say that the blood on the elders was just blood transfer and that there was never any injury, because the fire department never confirmed that there was any injuries. And usually elderly people who suffer such traumatic injuries have to go to the hospital, and no one was able to get treated. And we ended up going to trial, and we won the trial. But in the middle of the trial, as the jurors were deliberating, one of the jurors comes out and she starts crying. She's like, I can't handle this. This is just too much. And she started having a panic attack. And we asked her, did you want to call the police? She's like, no, just give me some time. And she was the juror who was kind of like backing out for a second, because she was a juror who saw trauma against her grandparents. And she just she wanted to make sure she was making the right decision, but was so pressured by past trauma that she had. But then she said she could continue on, and she continued on, and we got a not guilty verdict. I was able to establish the fact that there was a lack of communication. I was able to get a Mandarin expert to assist me with interviewing the parents, getting the, and communicating with my client as well. So it was a case where I had a lot of experts involved, but because of the help of the experts, my client is now back with his parents and able to still take them to work. And I remember that case because they were so appreciative to me. They brought me a Buddha and the food and the stage, and they were just so grateful, and I still keep in contact with them. I've learned very few Mandarin words, but I think what I remember the most are the success stories, because there's not a lot in our field. Often you hear judges say your motion is denied, respectfully declined, and it's just it's the constant no, that when you get that not guilty, or when you get that your motion is granted or this case is dismissed, it's really, I think it's what makes my job so rewarding.
That's terrific. I wonder, for you, what keeps you from burning out? Because I imagine you have caseloads that are quite large.
At first, when I first started, so when you first start the public defender's office, it's a full year of training. You're not allowed to ask for a vacation. It's training, and you don't get your first, they don't just drop you into felonies. Like, everything requires a lot of training. So that first year was very intense. In 2014, I got diagnosed with lupus, and immediately after I started taking I passed the bar, and my doctor said, you should consider a career change. I was like, well, that's very hard to do right now, considering I spent so much money in law school, and I want to be a public defender. So I think what I learned from that 1 year of training is that you have to establish a boundary, and you have to leave your job, you have to leave work at work, because if you overwhelm yourself with everything that's going on every day, you're going to get to a point where you mentally can't do the job and you physically can't do the job. So I think establishing boundaries with work, once I leave work, I leave my computer there. The only reason I come or bring work to my house is because I'm in trial, and my client deserves that that communication with me and that work discipline. But for the most part, I try to just leave my work at work. I have come to realization that I'm always going to be busy. I'm always going to have an extreme caseload. But if I myself am not mentally stable and physically stable, I can't continue to represent these clients. So I think it wasn't until my first year of training, where I did 4 trials back to back in a span of a month and a half, that I ended up in the emergency room because I had the biggest flare up. And then my doctor said, Jessica, you can't do this job if you're not healthy. So I think being healthy, working out, eating right, having a therapist, and having that good boundaries with being okay with leaving work at work will allow you to do this job. Because right now, especially now with budgets and COVID, the pandemic decreasing these budgets, our caseloads are at an all-time high. Like, we have not had such caseloads. I am in the office with people who've worked there for 25, 30 years, and they themselves say, this caseload is like nothing other that I've ever seen. So I think with establishing boundaries and doing as much as you can with the resources that you have, you're able to do this job.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Are there any other questions that anybody has out there? Okay, well, you just answered this one, which is an increase in cases since the start of the pandemic. You just answered that. Maybe you want to close with any advice that you wish you'd been given, or that you would like to give our listeners today?
Yes. If you are doubting yourself about law school, but you truly have that passion and you have that desire, we definitely need you. Don't take no for an answer. Even though people tell you maybe you're not academically set, you can still pave the way, and don't let anyone tell you differently. I think if you have the desire to work with a vulnerable population, that you should be able to work with that population, because you are contributing a lot of resources that other people can't give. And if you're seriously considering law school, do your research. Make sure you're physically and mentally capable of doing it, and push yourself and have that confidence. And if you guys have any questions, I am more than happy to give you my email address. If anyone is in need of a mentor, I am busy, but I always make time to help people find their passion.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We really appreciate your time and your energy and what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry. Hi, thank you, Alice. Thank you, Jessica, for your time today. Jessica, thank you so much for offering to assist our students or our alumni if they're interested in a law career. They could definitely email us and we'll connect you with with you if you're okay. Not sure if you're on LinkedIn where they can find you as well.
Yes, I am also on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on all the social media platforms because I like to convey a lot of knowledge and information that people are not aware of about the criminal justice system. So
wonderful. So thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And
I'm sorry.
And again, if you're interested in following us or visiting our website to learn about future chats like this, please visit our site, and we thank you for joining us today.